There's been as many twists and turns in AI development as there have been in policy since we started writing this book. And it's only been a year. So it's crazy to think what will happen in the years to come. But, maybe you all want to share, the title was not a foregone conclusion. In fact, it was a last minute change, I think, much to the consternation of our publisher, because we were at a point where the title should have been determined. But we needed to make some changes. And I know even the title that I'd proposed, Governing the Machine, was not necessarily comfortable when we first started talking about it. Some of you want to share, I won't call anyone out, but if you want to talk about your thoughts on the title and the evolution, maybe it'd be interesting for people to hear that as well.
I mean, I think the title that we have now works really, really well. I think the concept of having a sort of a slightly more eye-catching short title, but then a subtitle that sort of describes what the book actually does in more detail was a good decision that we made at some point along the way. I can't remember where that, where that came in. And I think changing to focus on governing or governance actually, in hindsight was quite prescient, because certainly in conversations that I have with organizations now, governance is the key topic that people are talking about, as whether we call it responsible AI or controlling AI or whatever, as that sort of concept gets embedded into more mainstream governance and approaches within an organization. I think it's a very apt title. So I'm certainly very happy with where we ended up after many twists and turns.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, Miriam, you're right. Many things did change. So the title that you've talked about, and I remember early on, we talked so much about sort of trustworthy AI. So trust being the key thing that we want to achieve. But in fact, governance is even better, because governance is the means by which we get to that end goal. So I think the journey we took to land on the title actually really summarized what we wanted to do. And as Ray said, Ray, I have to share your note there. Governance is the thing that keeps cropping up in conversations I have with corporations. And other things change as well. We had a change in the US administration halfway through writing the book, or in the late stages of writing the book.
And the UK and in so many countries across the globe.
And then, of course, agentic AI, which really, was a bit of a murmur when we started writing the book. And I was never quite sure whether or not it would kind of come into fruition. But look, it's really mainstream now. So we had all the work that we had to do about thinking about agentic AI as being the next almost risk frontier, if you like. So title, technology, policy, and of course the book cover as well. We had many iterations on a style of book cover that we were happy with.
Yeah, because we didn't want it to be flat. We didn't want it to get lost on the book stands. We wanted it to have some character. On the other hand, the sci-fi images we were coming up with did not tell the story. It might have been eye-grabbing, but it wasn't our story. It wasn't the message we were trying to get across. And I thought it was such an interesting conversation we had. All of our conversations I really learned from and was grateful for. But even talking about governance and governing, in my mind, as we just talked about, it is the key to adoption. But in some of the conversations we'd had with others when floating that name, we heard about governance sounding like a checklist, sounding like a compliance check that people try to avoid, and understanding with empathy and sympathy that, nobody wants another compliance check. Nobody wants another hoop to jump through. We didn't want the governance in the premise of our book to be thinking about a stopgap or a measure to slow progress and innovation. And so finding that balance, asking, is it possible for us to reframe the idea of governance and make it an enabler instead of a stop sign?